Samuel Greenamore enters Joe's apartment the next morning, and now we see a large scar on Joe's wall. It's the same crooked line that represents his former company and, as we know, the devil. Mr. Greenamore is no one else but the devil himself. Here, Joe is given the Faustian bargain. That is, for Joe to get all his heart's desires and pay the price later. Specifically, Joe is given carte blanche to spend huge sums of money, live like a king, be treated like a hero, and then finally jump into a volcano. Joe doesn't even think about it very long before agreeing to the deal. This just shows how lost Joe really is.
You're a national hero. You're Charles Lindbergh. It's wine, women, and song in the sweetest little paradise you ever saw. And then you jump into the volcano. Live like a king, die like a man. That's what I say. What do you say?
All right, I'll do it.
Joe is ready to go on a Manhattan shopping spree and satisfy every materialistic lust he has. This fits exactly into the devil's plan, as Joe will lose what's left of his soul with his greed. However, help is on the way, in the form of the limousine driver Marshall. Marshall is basically Joe's guardian angel, and subtly tries to steer him right. Joe doesn't know where to go or what to buy, again indicating how directionless he is.
What kind of clothes do you got now?
Well, I got the kind of clothes I'm wearing.
So you got no clothes.
But Marshall won't directly tell him either. He wants Joe to make these decisions. Marshall says, "Clothes make the man," and later tells Joe he has no clothes, hinting that Joe isn't a man, but a child. As a guardian angel, Marshall is constantly giving Joe advice. Later, Marshall tells Joe he's coming into focus once Joe has new clothes and a new haircut. Joe encounters the luggage man. Here's a real lost soul. All he seems to think about or talk about is luggage. He reminds us of Joe's former co-workers who live meaningless, petty lives. Notice, however, the blue sky covering the door to the steamer trunk. This, the star on the floor, and the choir that chants are indications of heaven. The trunks represent a gift from heaven.
There are certain times in your life when I guess you're not supposed to have anyone, you know? Certain doors you gotta go through alone.
You're gonna be all right.
Marshall's mentoring puts Joe on the correct path of life. When Joe tells Marshall, "There are certain doors you got to go through alone," Marshall smiles, as this confirms that Joe is finding direction and himself. Upon reaching Los Angeles, Joe remarks, "It looks fake. I like it." Joe prefers living in a fairy tale world. Earlier, the hairdresser said he looks like a prince in a fairy tale. Angelica, also played by Ryan, is very different from Dee Dee. She is weird and moody. She is also utterly self-absorbed and likes to talk about herself. When the subject is something other than about her, her favorite response is, "I have no response to that."
I have no response to that.
What do you do?
Angelica, with her fiery colored hair, clothes, and car, represents the goddess of the sun. Note how depressed she suddenly gets at night, and she starts talking of killing herself.
Did you ever think about killing yourself?
What? Why would you do that? Listen to me. If you have a choice between killing yourself and doing something you're scared of doing, why not take the leap and do the thing you're scared of doing?
Joe soon recognizes her as a fellow lost soul, more lost than he is. Joe asks her if instead of killing yourself, do what you're afraid of doing. Wouldn't it be worth the risk? Joe had tried to help Dee Dee by giving her the child's lamp. Now he's trying to help Angelica go onto the right path. Joe's growth is evident here. He is selflessly trying to help a fellow human being. Note how, unlike with Dee Dee, he chooses not to bring Angelica to the hotel room. He also never tells Angelica about his situation.
What's the trunks, Felix?
Oh, those are... Well, my name's not Felix, it's Joe.
I know.
That's your half-sister?
Yeah. That outfit's wearing you, Felix.
Why are you calling me Felix?
Knowing what we know about the two previous Meg Ryan characters, it's easy to deduce that Patricia is the moon goddess. She remarks that the sunshine gets her down. It's clear that she and Angelica the sun don't get along. Patricia is another lost soul. She is ashamed at herself for performing a service for her father in exchange for a boat. To her, it is a compromise of principle, so she, like Joe, took the Faustian bargain. Joe begins to bond with Patricia, something he couldn't do with Dee Dee or Angelica. They're all lost souls, but Patricia seems a kindred spirit. Like Joe, she is aware of what she has done and is rediscovering herself.
Because I had a price. He named it, and now I know that about myself. And I could treat you like I did back out on the dock, but that would be me kicking myself for selling out, which isn't fair to you. It doesn't make me feel any better. I don't know what your situation is, but I wanted you to know what mine is. Not just to explain some rude behavior, but because we're on a little boat for a while, and I'm soul sick. And you're gonna see that.
Everybody, yeah, 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 all I really need is love. Come on, give me that love. All I need is love. Good loving, baby. Come on, give me that love. All I need is love. Good loving, baby. Good love.
The crew are enjoying themselves fishing the next day. However, the shark, like the Fire in Paradise poster, is an omen. It foretells that not all is well and there is danger ahead. Joe and Patricia bond further that night. Joe asks Patricia if she believes in God, and Patricia answers, I believe in myself. After all, she is a god in the underlying story. It's interesting how Joe seems to see no difference between a tropical island he is going to and Staten Island where he is coming from. We already know that Staten Island is full of lost souls, and we'll soon see that Pony Woo is no different.
Do you believe in God?
Patricia remarks that her father told her that most of the world is asleep, and the few who aren't live in a state of constant, total amazement. We already know this to be true, and who better to make this observation than the devil himself, who preys upon those who choose to sleep through life.
I have no interest in myself. I start thinking about myself, I get bored out of my mind.
Well, what does interest you?
I don't know. Courage. Courage interests me.
So you're gonna spend the rest of your life on a tiny island in the South Pacific?
Well, up till now, I've lived on a tiny island called Staten Island. Commuted to this job, a shut-up room, pumped in air, no sunshine, despicable people, and now that I have some distance from that situation, I find that unbelievable. Your life seems...
Joe looks back at his life and realizes how different both he and his life are now as to when he was working in the factory. More indications that Joe is growing as a person. When Joe told Dee Dee about his predicament, she was overwhelmed and refused to deal with it. Joe had the good sense to not even bother to tell the self-absorbed Angelica. Joe does decide to explain it all to Patricia.
I have less than 6 months to live. The Waponis believe they need a human sacrifice or their island is going to sink into the ocean. They have this mineral your father wants, so he hired me to leap into their volcano.
What?
You're not going to make me say that again, are you?
No.
Patricia's a bit shocked, but seems to accept it. This is more evidence of her similarities with Joe. Note how there are candles and sunflowers behind Joe. The candles remind us of the candlelight dinner with Dee Dee, while the sunflowers represent Angelica. Twice in the movie, Joe tells one of the women that he felt he had seen her before. Dee Dee, Angelica, and Patricia represent different parts of the same woman, which is why Meg Ryan plays all three parts. So Joe is basically addressing all three of them, as the symbols in the background suggest. Joe may have sold his soul, but he now seems to be reclaiming it. He has full self-awareness and a true love of life. He has also met the woman he was meant to be with. For Joe to fully claim his soul back, he will have to be severely tested. A one-time firefighter, Joe bravely rescues Patricia when she is knocked overboard. Here we see the storm was brought on by the devil as we see the lightning bolt in the shape of the crooked path strike and destroy the boat. Not all is hopeless though. The trunks he had bought come to the surface. These trunks represent Joe's guardian angel Marshall, as Joe had purchased them with Marshall's assistance. He is being looked after.